Many people saw Miami law enforcement detain Tyreek Hill, a gifted wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins, for allegedly violating Florida traffic laws. But was the stop and detention unconstitutional? And what are the broader implications for other African American men when law enforcement in such brazen fashion detains a young black man of Mr. Hill's status? And what, if any, blame should Trump himself shoulder? Stay tuned, and I'll answer all of those questions and more. Hello, I'm attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers, and each and every week we bring you at least one legal analysis of some trending story regarding politics, policies, personalities, or pop culture to empower you with the information you need to defy this unjust legal system and to nullify systemic racism. If that interests you, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell so you'll get notification every time we drop one of these powerful videos. All right, now, what I want you to do, please, if you have an African-American son in public schools, go to Amazon, get a copy of my book entitled Education and Justice. I wrote this book especially for you. You need to know all the things that the public school system is doing to harm African-American male students and what you can do about those things. So get your copy of this book. I promise you, you will not regret it. All right, so let's talk about another young African-American male. His name is Tyreek Hill. He plays for the Miami Dolphins, and we saw him on video being detained by Miami law enforcement. So I want to do a legal analysis of that detention, and I want to talk briefly about the broader implications of what happened to Mr. Hill. All right, let's kick that off by watching some video.
Controversy surrounding Tyreek Hill and Miami-Dade police after the star wide receiver was detained during a traffic stop while he was heading to the game. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Chelsea Jones. This all happened a few hours before kickoff close to Hard Rock Stadium, and what is getting attention is this video right here. Hill being put on the pavement in handcuffs. We do have team coverage for you tonight, beginning with CBS News Miami's Joe Gorcho. He is live in Miami Gardens. Joe.
Chelsea, we are, and Dolphins fans are still trying to figure out as well what happened that ended up with Tyreek Hill on the pavement as they left the game. Two things were on their mind. One, excitement they won, and again, what happened with Tyreek Hill. And after the game, Tyreek Hill told reporters that he himself was still trying to put it all together as to how he ended up on the pavement in handcuffs.
Get out of the car right now.
Cell phone video shows Miami-Dade police officers telling Tyreek Hill to get out of his car.
Doing what my uncle always told me to do whenever you're in a situation like that. Just listen, put your hands on the steering wheel. Just listen.
Moments later, another one shows Hill face down on the pavement, surrounded by officers as he is put in handcuffs.
It happened so fast that it caught me off guard. You feel me?
Officers then walk Hill to the curb, where seconds later, another officer appears to force him to sit.
What if I wasn't Tyreek Hill, bro? Like, worst case scenario.
Why do you believe the police put you in handcuffs?
I have no idea, for real. No idea. No idea, man. It's crazy. It wasn't disrespectful. You know, because my mom didn't raise me that way.
MDPD says it detained Hill, cited him for careless driving, then releasing him to go play in the opener.
I look, they saying that's Hill, that's Hill. I said, oh my God.
Pamela told us she watched the entire situation unfold.
Maybe 10, 15 minutes later, that's when the other football player pulled up. And he was saying, twin, you all right?
Defensive tackle Calais Campbell also said police put him in handcuffs. Miami-Dade Police Director Stephanie V. Daniels, in a statement Sunday, said she initiated an internal affairs investigation. One officer involved has been placed on administrative duties while the investigation is being conducted.
That should tell you everything you need to know then.
Dolphins fans left the game happy for the win.
Fins up, we're going to the Super Bowl. Free Tyreek Hill, let's go!
Supporting Hill after what happened.
You didn't have to cuff him, you had to put him on the hot pavement. The pavement was burning hot, and they stuck him down there on that ground. They just broke my heart.
Probably upset him and made him play harder.
Main reason why we came to the game is to watch him, so I'm happy he was able to pull through and get in the game.
Seemed like he forgot about it, just, okay, let's play.
Able to talk to my wife, calm down a little bit, and I was straight, man. Because I know at the end of the day, I still got a job to do.
And we did reach out to MDPD to get a look at the body cam footage following Hill being put in handcuffs. We have yet to receive that video. Live outside Miami Gardens in Hard Rock Stadium, Joe Gorcho, CBS News, Miami.
And it will give us a different picture of what happened. Looking forward to seeing that. Joe, thank you for your report. Well, Miami-Dade Mayor Daniela Levine Cava released a statement saying, in part, in recent years, our nation has been confronted important conversations on the use of force, and the internal review process will answer questions.
All right, so there you have it. Tyreek Hill said he was not disrespectful. He said he put his hands on the steering wheel the way his uncle told him to handle these kinds of situations. We saw on the video the officers knocking on his window and asking him to roll down the window, and I did see the window begin to go down. And then we saw Tyreek lying face flat on the cement, handcuffed. We also saw one of the officers use force to make Tyreek sit down on the sidewalk. Now, what we don't know in that incident was whether or not he was refusing to do so. So there are some very troubling parts of the video. So I want to do an analysis. I can't really do a thorough analysis because I don't have everything in front of me. Let's go to another screen and I'll show you what I'm saying. So to do a thorough analysis, I would handle this incident as though Tyreek walked in our office and retained us to represent him on the criminal and the civil rights cases. Right? There are two cases here, possibly. A criminal case where he would have to defend himself, or a civil rights case where he would sue the city and sue those cops for the way they handled him under Section 1983, 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 of the Federal Code. So in order for me to do a thorough analysis of this, if he had walked into our office, there are several things that I would need that I currently don't have, right? So we would request a detailed statement from Hill himself. We would ask Tyreek, give us a detailed statement. We will walk through that statement with him and got everything from him that we could get, that he could remember about that case. And I mean minute by minute by minute by minute by minute details. So then we would also want to get a detailed statement from all witnesses, right? Like the African-American lady who said she saw everything. We would hire an investigator and have the investigator find that lady, question her, get all the information we can get from her and any other witness out there. We would also obtain copies of all surveillance videos because, to be sure, there were surveillance cameras all around that incident, not to mention all the many cell phone videos that were probably also running as this was happening. Right, so you can assume almost anything you do in public nowadays is being recorded either by city, county, or state, or some other law enforcement agency, or is being recorded by other citizens on their cell phones. We would try to get all of that, every bit of that. Then we would also request copies of body and dash cam videos, and we would do that before the case was even filed by filing a request of information. I don't know what it's called in Florida. And by the way, remember, I'm not a Florida lawyer. I'm a Texas lawyer. So some of this, the way they handle things in Florida, I don't know. But I know how we do it here. And so before the case is even filed, or if the case is filed, we would ask the city to give us copies of all body and dash cam video. We would also file a complaint with the city of Miami and request all their records. I believe the city has opened an internal affairs investigation and has put one officer on administrative leave with pay. We would ask for all the records associated with that investigation. We would also ask the county for the probable cause affidavit, whatever law enforcement agency is handling this, whether it is the city of Miami or the county. Here in the state of Texas, it would be the county district attorney's office. So I presume that's the way they do it in Florida. But whoever has that probable cause affidavit, we would ask for that as well. And by the way, what that is an affidavit that law enforcement would fill out and with the magistrate, laying out why they took the steps they took. Okay, a probable cause affidavit. And then we would also ask for a copy of the arrest warrant, if there was one. There may not be one because I believe after they ticketed Tyreek, they let him go. So basically what they did was detain him and didn't carry out the actual arrest. And I think that is because of some of the things I'm going to show you about Florida law. But whether he was arrested or not, we would want a copy of the incident report as well. So we would get all of that information so that we can do a very thorough, full, complete analysis. All right. So obviously I don't have those things. The facts are still coming out. Videos are still turning up. So I'm going to give you the analysis I can give you with the information that I have right now in the law. Okay. And I say that because it is really important for me as an attorney not to be the first person out here on the story, but to be accurate in what I say, because I am a lawyer and I want to make sure that I'm telling you the right thing, right? My credibility is on the line here as a lawyer. So I want to make sure that what I say is accurate. And if I say something that's not accurate, it's a mistake. We humans, we make mistakes, we make errors. So we just try to correct it and keep it moving. But I have this motto around our firm, which says we measure twice and we cut once. We measure twice and we cut once. I learned that in the military. So you got to make sure you got your ducks in a row before you take any actions. So I stress that here. So we have done the best we can with what's out there right now to ascertain the facts as we know it. So my analysis is going to likely change as more facts and videos and witnesses and so forth come out. All right. But anyway, I think I am able to give you some facts. And by the way, eventually we will, if we were representing Tyreek, we would get all the discovery, all the evidence that the state has against Tyreek if, in fact, they follow through with any prosecution. Although my understanding is he got a simple ticket for careless driving or something. I don't know. I'm going to discuss that in just a second. So we would want everything, every bit of information, all the videos, all the witness statements, all the documents, all the records, all the reports, everything. We want everything in our possession, and we're entitled to everything, right? So we would insist that we got that on behalf of Mr. Hill. All right, now, let's walk through a couple of things because this is the way we would analyze this if, again, Mr. Hill was in our office and we were legally advising him. All right, now let's go to another screen. So the first thing that we would want to know is whether or not there was reasonable suspicion for the stop. Cops are bound by the United States Constitution, and namely in this type of situation, the Fourth Amendment. They can't just search and stop and arrest you. They must comply with the United States Constitution. And so anytime a cop stops someone, he or she must show that they had reasonable suspicion. Reasonable suspicion. Now, let me explain. There are 5 levels or burdens of proof in the law. There's reasonable suspicion. It's the lowest. Probable cause. It's right above that. A preponderance of the evidence. That's number 3. Clear and convincing evidence. That's number 4. And beyond a reasonable doubt, number 5. So cops just need that lowest standard to justify stopping someone. So when they stopped him, they better have had reasonable suspicion for doing so. Now, it's reported that they stopped him because of careless driving. Now, we can't just assume that they're telling the truth about that. I know if we were representing him, we certainly would not just accept what law enforcement said. We would look at all the evidence, all the surveillance tape. That's why we need all that, so that we can see if the officer is lying, which, listen, believe me, they lie a lot, okay? I don't want to broadly brush all law enforcement officers, but I'm telling you, we have caught many cops in lies. And I mean under oath, many. So we would definitely not just take their word on it. In fact, whatever Mr. Hill says happened that is consistent with the evidence, with the videotape, with the witness statements and so forth, then that will become the basis for our theory of the case, right? Not what the cop said. No. what Mr. Hill, our client, said, and what was also substantiated by videos and witness statements and so forth. So the stop must be justified with reasonable suspicion. If not, then everything that happened after that, we would try to get thrown out as evidence by filing a motion to suppress. And that means everything, even if Mr. Hill had violated the law, if the cop was not justified in stopping him in the first place, then everything that happened afterwards would be null and void. Because the U.S. Supreme Court says, according to the Fourth Amendment, we Americans are protected from unreasonable searches and seizures. So stopping someone is a seizure. So we need to know whether or not the cops had reasonable suspicion. Now, here's some case law. I'm going to read it to you. You're probably not going to understand it, but I'm going to read it to you nonetheless. The scheme of the Fourth Amendment becomes meaningful only when it is assured that at some point the conduct of those charged with enforcing the laws, which are law enforcement, can be subjected to the more detached, neutral scrutiny of a judge who must evaluate the reasonableness of a particular search or seizure in light of the particular circumstances. And in making that assessment, it is imperative that the facts be judged against an objective standard. Would the facts, listen closely, would the facts available to the officer at the moment of the seizure or search warrant a man of reasonable caution in the belief that the action taken was appropriate? We again call that reasonable suspicion. It's not just a hunch. It is some articulable set of facts that would warrant a stop. And that's in a car. That's also on the streets. If you're walking the streets, if the officer stops you, there has to be reasonable suspicion. If the officer doesn't have reasonable suspicion to stop you, then what I advise our folks to do is to ask the officer, have you detained me? And if the officer says no, then let the officer know that you're getting ready to walk off or drive off. All right? So, and of course you would do that respectfully. I talked about that in another video. But the question, number one question in Mr. Hill's situation, was there reasonable suspicion for the stop? It is reported that they witnessed Mr. Hill driving carelessly, or at least that was the reason they gave for the stop. Now, quite often, as I said earlier, they're lying. So that's why we need dash cam video. We need to see what that video sitting up on their dash showed about Mr. Hill's car. Was he indeed driving carelessly? Otherwise, we're going to immediately file a motion to suppress, ask the judge to throw everything out because they should never have stopped Mr. Hill. He has Fourth Amendment rights to be left alone unless they got some reason, some reasonable suspicion to stop him. All right? But it went further because they didn't just stop him. We saw him face flat with handcuffs on the pavement. So they detained him. You could say they arrested him, but I think that they would argue that what they did really was detain him. All right, so now to do that, you got to go to the next level down. Reasonable suspicion is only for the stop. Now to detain him the way they did, now they need probable cause. So now we're at the second stage of this situation. All right, now, probable cause, this case law says, and this is the U.S. Supreme Court, the substance of all the definitions of probable cause is a reasonable ground for belief of guilt. And this means less than evidence which would justify condemnation or conviction. Remember, that's beyond a reasonable doubt. No, probable cause doesn't ask for that because that's a really, really high standard up there. No, probable cause doesn't ask for that much evidence. But it is more than bare suspicion. Probable cause exists, here it is, where the facts and circumstances within the officer's knowledge and of which they had reasonably trustworthy information are sufficient in themselves to warrant a man of reasonable caution in the belief that an offense has been or is being committed, and I would add, in the person that they're detaining committed that offense. So in other words, The officers need what? Facts and circumstances. Facts and circumstances. So when they go to, because let me share this with you. The general rule is before someone is arrested, they need to go get a warrant from a magistrate. Let me say that again. That is the general rule. The general rule is the cops got to go to the magistrate, tell the magistrate in writing all the facts and circumstances that the officer believes justifies an arrest warrant, and then get the magistrate to sign off on it. Now they got a legal document to arrest someone or to search someone for that fact. Both arrest or search or seizure. Okay? There are exceptions. There are exceptions. And when one of those or more of those exceptions apply, then they don't need to go to the magistrate to get the search or arrest warrant. So apparently the officers felt like they had an exception where they could detain and or arrest Tyreek Hill. And that's what they did. All right. I don't have everything in front of me to tell you whether or not I believe they had enough probable cause to arrest Tyreek or to detain him. I don't know. All right. It's been reported that Tyreek was being uncooperative, whatever that means. And again, we don't take that for face value. As a matter of fact, we assume that the officers are lying, right? So we're going to challenge that. You know, if the officer says he was being uncooperative, we're going to challenge that. We don't believe them. You're lying. We don't believe what you just said. Our client was not being uncooperative. As a matter of fact, Tyreek said that he was not being disrespectful, had his hands on the steering wheel. I saw the window being rolled down. So we don't have any basis to believe that he was being uncooperative, right? So we would not take that for face value. We would challenge that. And by the way, let's now look at Florida law, because Florida law is really, really important here because we're in the jurisdiction of the state of Florida. So what does Florida law say about this? Florida law says we hold that when a person is charged with violating a municipal ordinance regulating conduct that is non-criminal in nature, such as in the traffic control area, section 901.15, subsection 1, only permits a person to be detained for the limited purpose of issuing a ticket, summons, or notice to appear. A full custodial arrest in such situations is unreasonable and a violation of the Fourth Amendment and Article 1, Section 12 of the Florida Constitution. That's Thomas v. State. So what does this mean? This means that if Florida cops stop someone who has violated a municipal order, like a traffic violation, then their Supreme Court has said Section 901.15, which gives officers the authority to arrest someone for a traffic ticket. The Florida Supreme Court said they should not arrest that person. They should detain that person long enough to give that person a ticket, a summons, or notice to appear. That's the Florida Supreme Court. If it is a mere non-criminal municipal ordinance violation, then don't fully arrest the person. You can detain the person long enough to give the person a ticket, a summons, or notice to appear. And there's also U.S. Supreme Court cases that says that that stop, once the officer has confirmed the person doesn't have a warrant, once the officer see that the person is not dangerous, then that stop shouldn't last for no longer than it's necessary to write that person a ticket, to give them a warning or whatever, but don't just hold them there. I've had so many cases where officers would hold the person there until they can get the person to say something incriminating or hold the person there long enough for some other officer to come with some search dogs or something. We've gotten cases thrown out for that reason, right? So once they saw that all he was doing was carelessly driving, and assuming that careless driving in Florida is a non-criminal municipal violation. I don't know if it's non-criminal or not. I would assume that it is. I don't know. I don't know. So if it's a non-criminal type of traffic violation, then what they should have done is given him a ticket, a summons, a notice to appear, and said, bye-bye, Mr. Hill. Have a good game. That's where that should have ended. Why it ended up with him on his face on that sidewalk is the issue. And quite frankly, that brings us to the broader implications of that stop. Because then we start asking, if Tyreek was a young white man, would he have been, on his face for a simple careless driving infraction? If he was a black man, I mean, could have gone very wrong. We've seen cops kill black men for doing nothing. So for us African American men, getting stopped is a big deal, even if it's for a simple traffic violation, because we have witnessed many times cops killing black men for nothing. For nothing. Or a little bit of nothing, right? So that's why we have to be on top of these cases as a community. Which brings me to the last thing. We definitely don't want Donald Trump in office giving these cops prosecutorial immunity. That's what he has promised to do if he's reelected. Because what is that going to do? That's going to embolden cops to be even more brazen and brash and reckless and careless, especially when they're dealing with African American men. Right? Just think about that. We don't need Trump in office giving cops prosecutorial immunity. In fact, what we need to do is get Kamala Harris in office so that we can get the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act enacted, and so that she can sign it into law. Not go in the opposite direction. Trump even said in one of his videos that with his law and order policies, he wants to re-implement stop and frisk policies. Stop and frisk, just stop you. It's pretty much just suspending all of what I just said about reasonable suspicion, right? It suspends with that and just authorizes cops to just stop you and just overlook the Fourth Amendment, basically. Overlook all this case law and just stop you, which is why because Rudy Giuliani was doing this, and I think Mike Bloomberg, when he was mayor of New York City, I believe they had implemented this stop and frisk policy, and they sued the city of New York. Some of the plaintiffs, some of those who had been stopped, they sued the city of New York, and it went before a federal judge who found that stop and frisk violates the Fourth Amendment. And she struck it down and made them stop it. Trump wants to re-implement that. And it's, these young black men who are out here talking about voting for Trump. And they are the ones who will be stopped and frisked the most. What are we doing? What are we talking about? Have we lost our minds? Black men, what are you doing? Those of you who are planning on voting for Trump or not voting for Kamala, are you out of your mind? You're listening to these YouTubers, these what I call pro-black imposters. You're listening to them. And some of them are out here saying that the Democrats are now blaming Trump for what happened to Tyreek Hill. Man, we got to talk about Trump when we talk about law enforcement because, and by the way, he was just endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. And that really blew my mind because here Trump is a convicted felon and Kamala Harris is a prosecutor. And the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed the convicted felon over the former prosecutor. You know what that's called? White supremacy. White supremacy. And that tells you that Kamala Harris is on the right side of these issues. If the Fraternal Order of Police rejects her although she has a 30-year history as a prosecutor and endorses Trump, who is a convicted felon, and who led a movement that cost the lives of cops, of police officers. That's white supremacy. And why young black men, some of these rappers and these other people, are out here capping for Trump when he's a white supremacist and represents a white supremacist agenda and is chomping at the bits to get back in office so that he can give cops prosecutorial immunity? Do these rappers think that their money will shield them from this? Is that what it is? Do they think, I mean, what are they thinking? They're not thinking. Half of them don't keep up with these issues. Half of them don't know what's going on, which is why I did a video a month or so ago advising black men to stop listening to celebrities and entertainers and athletes and rappers where the political and legal space is concerned. Enjoy their music, enjoy their movies, all of that, but they are not political and legal experts that you should be getting your information from. So we have to talk about Trump when we talk about law enforcement in this country. Absolutely have to, right? Now we're going to follow up with the video soon about Kamala Harris's prosecutorial history. All right, some of you have been asking us to address that. I've been promising you we're going to do it, and we're going to do it. I promise you. And it's not going to be consistent with what you have been told from these pro-black imposters. Just like it hasn't been consistent with what you've been told about this anti-Asian hate crime bill, that it was only for Asians. And there's no hate crime bill that has ever been passed or enacted for African Americans. The reason they're telling you these things quite often is because they're repeating what they're hearing. And the source of these things have never sat in a political science classroom. They've never sat in a constitutional law classroom. They've never sat in, many of them, a history class. And yet you out here taking their words for stuff. Are you serious? It is voting the couch and listening to those people. That was why Trump was elected to office the first time. And he's counting on you to do it again. Reject what they tell you because they don't know what they are talking about. I've even had some folks to say, I've dealt with some legal issues in some of my videos, and I've had folks to comment, such and such and such dealt with that and went in details. And the person doesn't have the first iota of information and knowledge and experience on the law or politics. It's probably I'm not calling any names, but someone who does freaking comedy or rap. And they're going to tell me, a lawyer with 2 decades of practicing law and studying these matters, I've already listened to that from some rapper. That's the reason why they target the black community with this kind of foolishness and disinformation in the first place. Because they know some of us are just easily misled. I'm not going to go to the mechanic to get medical advice. Not at all. Are you going to go to the mechanic and come to court with the mechanic and say he's going to be my lawyer? First of all, you couldn't, because he would be arrested for practicing law without a license. And yet out here in these streets, you're going to turn to people who don't know a thing about these issues and give them your ear. No wonder there's so much disinformation in the black community. All right. I mean every bit of that. Because when I got into this YouTube space here and started doing these videos, it shocked me. All the disinformation out here. And all these YouTube imposters telling you all to not vote, not vote, not vote, not vote until you get reparations, not vote until this and that. Look, I want to say up front, I understand those frustrations. And I understand that more needs to be done. And why hasn't there been more progress for certain sectors of our community? I completely understand that. That is the basis of critical race theory. But the solution is not voting the couch. That's not the solution. In fact, the solution is the very opposite, impact voting. And it's definitely not voting for the party that has blatantly made it clear that they're all about white supremacy. All right, so that's what I wanted to share with you about the Tyreek Hill situation. That's my legal analysis with the information that I had, and those are my comments regarding the broader racist implications of what happened to Mr. Hill. I am Attorney Augustus Corbett, one half of the Defiant Lawyers. Thank you for tuning in, and until the next time, peace.